Good afternoon and welcome to the October 4th regular meeting of council. The city of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. Our first item is the consent agenda. I'm going to make an amendment to it where I'd like to defer item 5A until the next meeting if we could. So that I need somebody to make a motion to pass the amended agenda. Yes.
Hi, Your Worship. I'd like to make an adjustment to it. I notice a part of the consent agenda includes the minutes of the council meeting of September 20th. I feel that there was an omission made in the new business for the September 20th meeting. I can flip over to it. The new business shows no new business. I recall distinctly doing a note of recognition anyways for the Wilson 5 Foundation to show appreciation from the city, but I noticed not recording in the new business. I was just wondering if we should amend that.
Okay, I'll let you go ahead.
Sorry, if I may, Your Worship, you can
go ahead.
correct me
No,
if I'm wrong.
yep, please.
So because there was no motion passed by council, we treated it just like we do our other updates where council liaison or other news is shared. We don't usually put that in the minutes, but if council wishes to amend it to make it a resolution, then it would show up in the minutes.
Well, that was kind of the point of the first place, is actually putting the notice out there anyways of appreciation to the foundation because of it's important for them to realize that we, the city of Parksville and the residents of the city of Parksville, are very appreciative for their donation to the estuary of the English River. So I thought that was it. As I recall, anyways, the His Worship the Mayor actually asked if we wanted to put through a motion at that time, and I asked for clarification. If we did need a motion, you suggested that we don't need a motion. So I'm rather unclear as to that reasoning.
Whoops, if I may, Your Worship, that's on me. I believe that it was just your intent to do the public acknowledgement, and that was kind of what your goal was. But if you wanted it to be a more formal recognition of the event or something of that nature, then we would need a motion. So that's on me. I apologize. I thought you just wanted to make it a public statement, and that the statement at the meeting was kind of your intent. But if you want it to be in the minutes, we would need a formal motion. So I apologize for that misunderstanding.
Would it be appropriate then for me to under new business in council meeting today? Could I
Yes.
put forward that? Would
Yes.
that work for everyone? Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
All right. So now we're just one amendment to the consent agenda, which is on the agenda itself. Item 5A is being deferred till next meeting. I need a mover and a seconder for it. Moved by Councillor Chandler, second by Councillor Greer. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Presentations, Mr. Dawson and Mr. Damon.
You probably need me to do that, Teresa. Thank you. How can you hear me? Do you need my mask off or is everything fine? I'm fine. Okay. Thank you very much. There we go. Amanda got it all together for me. Thank you. She gave me a new toy too. So let's see how this goes. Yes. Apparently so, yeah. Okay. No worries. Sorry, your screen's not working. So, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today to talk to you. We thought it was good to give you a little bit of an update on what the emergency program has done so far this year. And so here are the things we want to talk about in the next 10 minutes or so. And we left that picture on there from the COVID update last year that we provided for council, just as a nod to those people that helped Rob and I get through the high points of COVID, and to all the staff who worked really, really hard to ensure that everything was followed properly and no one got sick. So just a nod to everybody, all in staff. So hazard, risk, and vulnerability analysis. So in the spring of 2020, we brought you an information report that gave you a copy of the HRVA. HRVA being, again, short for hazard, risk, and vulnerability analysis. What that is it's a cornerstone document. If you don't have an accurate or up-to-date HRVA, you don't know as an emergency program what you need to plan for, where you need to go, how you need to protect your infrastructure, your residents, everything within your local government. So this was a document that we had not updated since 2009. And when we did it in 2009, it was a very high-level document, and it was using, for lack of better words, an older methodology. We were the first to use a new methodology that was approved by the province, that's being used internationally, that takes a far broader approach to determining what the hazards are in your area, what the risks are of those hazards. And you can't really see it. I don't know why it doesn't show up on the screen, but there's a vulnerability bubble to the left there. And so when you have a hazard, what is the risk to your community? And then what is your vulnerability to that hazard and that risk? And that tells us where we need to proceed and plan to protect everyone. So when we did that, we finished it in 2019. It was an 18-month process. You can see from up there, we had 70 different government, non-government, provincial, you name it, people at the table with us. So we were fairly satisfied that we were as comprehensive as we could be. Came up with 53 hazards of the 57 hazards that are identified across the province that can happen here. Whereas in 2009, the document said we had 18 hazards. But again, it was a very high-level document, and it categorized things like environmental events. But that didn't break it down into rainstorm, windstorm, snowstorm, all of those different things. We broke everything out. And this time, when we balanced our hazards against our risks and our vulnerabilities, we said our number one risk is fire, be it structure fire or interface wildfire, followed by overland flooding and wind events. So the first thing that most people have said is, well, what about earthquake? Isn't an earthquake a problem? Well, it is, and it shows up twice in this document, because earthquake, you can have a smaller earthquake where you have a disruption in service and you can overcome that in a short period of time. But then there's the catastrophic earthquake, and that's a totally different ballgame. So those things show up and give us different milestones to work towards when we do our planning for the whole Oceanside area. The reason they're further down the list is that the risk isn't as high. Because when was the last time we had an earthquake? It can still happen, but the risk is lower. We've had fires, we've had flooding, and we've had wind events, and we're going to have them regularly. The Environment Canada tells us to expect higher wind events and rain events regularly. So we need to plan for those. Where we were fortunate is working with the town of Qualicum Beach and the regional district of Nanaimo. We got a grant for this project. This overall project was about $150,000. The direct cost to Parksville residents was about $20,000. So grants are very important to us. So I think it was Councillor O'Brien, but I'm not sure, asked about council's role in an emergency. Okay, thank you. When I was talking to Kiva about it, we thought, well, you know what, why don't we look at his council's role in emergency preparedness? Because really, truly, that's what we need council for, not just when something bad happens. As you've done for us, which we're extremely appreciative of, you approve our budgets, you approve our bylaws, our new bylaw that came through the spring and the agreement with the town of Qualicum Beach. That formalized Emergency Management Oceanside. Those are all really, really important things for us to be able to move forward with the planning that we're going to talk about as we go here. The partnership with the town of Qualicum Beach also allows us to reach out to other local governments and see where we can join, have mutual aid agreements, fee-for-service agreements, whatever the situation is, that we can have backup and security to help us get through something when it happens here, or provide our services to another local government. And those are really important things that you have allowed us to be able to do. Because if we had to rely on going through the chain of command, and not to say that the chain of command through the province is a bad thing, but it's harder to do. If we can phone our neighbors right away and get the help we need in a timely manner, we're way better off. We'll get through things a lot faster. You know, another role of council is to help us promote the importance of EMO and preparedness in the community. Anytime that any of you have spoken to anyone in the community, we appreciate, because it helps us. It helps that recognition factor. It helps get it into people's minds that they need to be prepared. Because we've talked to you before about the importance of the local government has to be prepared, the province has to be prepared, and our citizens, our residents need to be prepared. If they're not, if there's a break in that chain, then it takes a lot longer for things to recover and get back to normal. So really important that you help us promote that. So the last two bullets that are there start to talk about, I think, more to Councillor O'Brien's question in terms of, well, what happens when there's a large scale emergency or something where council needs to be involved? And if you look at the bottom bullet, the mayor or the acting mayor has to authorize any of the documents that we need to send to the province, whether it's a state of local emergency or a request for certain funding. That has to be signed by one of those people. Well, if I'm correct, all of you get a chance at being the acting mayor. So in that, we need all of you to come together when you're called because of an emergency or disaster, so that you can get that knowledge base behind you as to what you all would need to do. So when we are all together, Kiva is going to be our EOC director. It's normally the CIO who is your EOC director. And the EOC is going to come together and formalize a plan. And when that plan is formalized, she's going to come to you as the policy group, review that with you, and you can from there decide what gets funded and what doesn't get funded in order to respond to that. So having a majority of council together at the time is highly important. So just because you hear that the mayor or the acting mayor gets the signing authority doesn't mean we don't need all of you. And it's really important that you're all there at the time. Okay, so what have we done so far? You can see from the first bullet, within District 69, there's been 33 activations of our program so far this year. Where that is really important to us and why we wanted to put that 35 number out there is that in a normal year, we might see 15. And for some reason, whether it's COVID related or whatever it's related to, can't think of any other reasons, we'll call it COVID, is that we've only gone 3/4 of the year and we're at 35 already. You can see the breakdown there, 3 in Qualicum, 13 in Parksville, and 19 in the regional district areas. We're just happy to be able to respond, support people that need it. 21 of those has needed direct support. And what direct support means is they've had housing, food, and they've had incidentals. And incidentals are like a toothbrush, a comb if you need it. I don't, but you know, if you needed a comb, we'd get you a comb, that kind of a thing. So building off of that, we've also, during the wildfire season, we deployed 4 volunteers to the interior. We had 4 people that were willing to go, and they were deployed by the province. And we had 2 or 3 people that were willing to stay behind because and work from home because the province does have a digital system now for registering people. They can happen over the phone. It can happen through a computer process. And so all over the island, there were ESS volunteers that were providing this service. You can see that it turned into 260 hours of support to the province from those 4 volunteers that were deployed. What that also meant is that we had volunteers behind them that had to step up and fill those voids. Because we've had all those activations this year, there's never been much downtime for those wonderful volunteers that we have. So that all had to happen. We had to keep our volunteer coordinator here. The province wanted him up in the interior, but we had to keep him behind, and he wanted to stay behind because of the amount of work coordinating everything that had to happen. During COVID, just like council has done, we had to look at different ways of doing business. We moved to Zoom meetings for our ESS group and our communications group, and a lot of times just meetings amongst ourselves as emergency coordinators up and down the island. What we also did was we started to get more and more requests, especially starting in January of this year, from residents saying, COVID has opened our eyes to the need for emergency preparedness. So I believe it's been around 13 presentations that Rob and I have done via Zoom to different community groups. We even with Deb and Kendra's help put out a registration process over the internet for just the general public to sign up, and we had overwhelming uptake on that. So we have done a lot. We've changed how we've done business. We still prefer to do business face to face. I must say I'm really happy about sitting here today. It's much better than talking to you over a computer. But that's how we've had to react, and that's how we've done business. Deb came up with the idea of the e-news. E-news is something you can sign up for on our website, our emergencyoceanside.ca website, and we send out a monthly newsletter updating on anything to do with emergency preparedness and emergency management in the Oceanside area. And we'll also put out supplemental e-news whenever there's something that needs to go out. CHIRP, which I've spelled wrong up there, it's CHERP, is the Canadian Hazards Emergency Response and Preparedness Initiative. There's Dr. Ryan Reynolds from UBC had decided that he wanted to create an app that could help people have their emergency plan on their phone. And so we are one of the chosen local governments to help with that. And that is, they're hoping to issue that publicly later this month, but we'll see whether they actually get it fully developed or not. And building relationships, I touched on that, when you approved our agreement with the town of Qualicum Beach, you gave us the opportunity to talk to some of our neighbors like the ACRD, like we've talked to Campbell River, and we've talked to the Comox Valley, and we've talked to the Cowichan Valley. The Cowichan Valley is looking at changing their program to be a similar model to ours. But what you've allowed us to do is talk to these local governments about how we can work together more closely. And that's going to be immensely valuable moving forward, as I've already said. Rob and I were approached by the Kamloops Preoc, that's Provincial Regional Emergency Operations Center. There's 5 of them across the province. During the wildfires this summer, a lot of the staff from the Vancouver Island EMBC management ended up in Kamloops, and they would phone us to ask us how a local government would handle a number of things. We were actually in the negotiating stages to go and help in Lytton after the fires there. But a number of logistical things happened, and that never came to fruition, unfortunately. We were looking forward to that opportunity. On top of that, as we've all done, we've lived with COVID. We continue to handle or listen in on all of the updates and all of the notifications, and we listen to the province whenever they want to give us information so that we can feed back through our organizations for any changes that are necessary. Hopefully not too many more. Something that we thought was interesting to us is maybe interesting to council. You can see since 2018, we've applied for a lot of grants, and we've also got funding through the COVID Recovery Fund to the tune of just over $700,000. So we've got a pet trailer, the group lodging supplies, there's the photo there to the right. That's a 8 by 20 CCAN that's all customized and holds complete bedding systems for 150 people, should we need it. Because we also know that in this area, at most of the times of the year, there's not a lot of hotel space available. You know, we're a pretty popular place. So we needed some manner of speaking to support displaced people when they need it. And we almost used that the other night last week for the travel lodge fire. So the money that we're getting through these grants is making us more sustainable, more standalone, more prepared to serve our public when they need it. So what are we doing next? We approached council. Council thankfully gave us the permission to offer a couple of contracts to consultants under the COVID recovery funds. One of the things that we're looking at is business continuity planning. We took what the province said to us during COVID a little bit more seriously than others did, as opposed to just creating a business continuity plan and putting it away. We decided that if we're going to do the work, we're going to go all the way. And with the money that you've allowed us to spend on this, we have hired a consultant who is going to go department by department through the 2 local governments and actually flesh out the plan that we have, so that we have working documents moving forward, so that the local governments can provide essential service no matter what happens. So that's an important thing for us to be able to do. Contingency planning, as it's written there, contingency planning is now building off those 53 hazards from our HRVA. We need to have a plan as to how we're going to respond to and recover from all those different hazards. So what we have done is we came up with the idea of working with a consultant. The same consultant that created the HRVA with us is now going to create a template for us to work with our stakeholders so that we can create 53 different plans, so that we have some stability and some knowledge base built to recover from these things. Some of the funding we have is for technology advances. As I discussed, the province is moving forward with technology to hopefully better respond to ESS in a larger scale like the wildfires. And we're looking at technology to improve our EOCs so that we can respond better in a timely manner. And we're also looking at things like satellite internet and satellite texting. We have lots of areas where that's not available within our region. And we also have the opportunity where, say, a catastrophic earthquake happens and we lose all our connectivity. How are we going to reach out? Lastly, I've already talked about COVID enough. We're hoping that we can all get back together next year. And if we can get back together next year, we have offered to host the Vancouver Island Emergency Preparedness Conference, which is just for Vancouver Island. It's a really great conference. It was virtual last year, unfortunately. But we're hoping to host it between Parksville and Qualicum next year. We'll see what happens with COVID. Used up a lot of your time. I hope that was clear enough for you. And if you have any questions, I'd love to address them.
Your Worship, can I ask a question?
Only after we pass the motion to receive.
Oh.
So moved by Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Wilson. All those in favor, please go ahead.
That was a great presentation. Thank you. Very clear. Any chance that we can get a copy, or is that not appropriate?
The presentation? Absolutely. I believe that's not a problem at all. I will ask Amanda to distribute it. One of the things I didn't talk about, which I'll touch on very briefly, is we would like to look at an opportunity to bring both councils together in one setting to show you the emergency program more definitively and talk about some of these initiatives more definitively than just sort of glossing over them here.
I think it's reasonably safe to put everybody in the same room. So any other questions? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Aaron. Yeah, thank you for a great presentation, Aaron, and it really opened my eyes on a lot of situations what you have to deal with and things we don't even think about. Interesting to note that the hazards went up significantly from what was identified before. So being ready to handle that, it makes it a lot easier than being caught short-sighted. So thank you very much for the presentation and addressing the concerns I had. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson and Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to echo my thanks to Aaron and his team. More acronyms that I get to memorize. So thanks to Councillor Wilson for asking for a paper copy. I was thinking of that as well. And I fully would support getting together with Town of Qualicum Beach and going over in more detail. So thank you again.
Thank you. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Aaron and the EMO group there. I just wanted to say, you know, in so many respects that I think we're really fortunate to have this kind of service here. You guys have really kind of taken it to the next level here. It's really quite amazing. I think that there's some cities here that would be in awe of what we've got in comparison to what they've got. Like it really is quite stupendous, actually. And what I'd also like to say is there's a lot of volunteers involved too, obviously, as well. I know you always thank them. I think it's incumbent on all of us to recognize them today too, as well. It's a huge thing that they put forward, and they're available at all moments notice and so on. So I'd like, on behalf of myself and potentially council, I'd like to say thank you for all the volunteer groups too, as well, that are involved.
That's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron, as always, thanks. Great job done. The other thanks that I'd like to give to you and your group is the thanks for your attendance at the fire last week and handling everything you did. I know at 12 o'clock at night, it's not the first phone call you want to receive, but thank you for the great job that you did in trying to pull that together. I appreciate it. All right. Next, we have a delegation from the RDN. Mr. DePaul. Is he online for this? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I would just share my screen.
Did we lose him? Did we lose him completely, Amanda? When he comes back, we'll pick him up from there. Okay, so just interrupt us at that time. This goes to show you that we can't talk about the new system any too soon, as far as I'm concerned. But we'll just keep right on moving along, and when he shows back up, we'll pick it up from there. Thank you. Correspondence, we no correspondence this afternoon, and moving on to reports. 5A has been deferred. Is that he's back? And before we get to 5B, we'll go back to Mr. Taylor. Are you okay there, Mr. Taylor? Yes.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yep.
Thank you, Your Worship, for this opportunity to do a brief presentation on our Bay Avenue project. Sorry for a little technical glitch. One click of a button and you're all gone. So the Bay Avenue pump station project is currently under construction, and I'm just going to give a brief update on where we are. The Bay Avenue Pump Station is a vital part of the wastewater infrastructure in the region. It conveys wastewater from the city of Parksville and to RDN areas of Pacific Shores and Surfside. It is located at the end of Bay Avenue on the beach. It was built in 1978. It serves the major part or major area of Parksville. About 80% of the wastewater generated in the city of Parksville passes through this pump station. Of the flow going through the pump station, 90% is from Parksville and 10% is from the RDN. It was built in 1978. There was an upgrade in 1997 and then again in 2003 with addition of a backup generator. It currently has access and operational challenges and is at capacity. And some of the challenges with this pump station: very steep access down to the beach. It's sandwiched between two properties. It's a challenge for operations to be able to get the heavy equipment out. We need to bring in a crane. And it's also subject to the threat of coastal flooding. Other challenges: the pumps are undersized and we have a lot of clogging issues with them. The wet well has very limited storage capacity, which is difficult for maintenance, as you cannot take the station down for long, as well as managing extreme wet weather flows. All the equipment is also below grade, so there's safety concerns with operators having to go into the confined space and sewer gas to do all the maintenance. Engineering and design has been going on for a while. We've had several iterations of design going through the process. A lot of it is looking at trying to improve access to the beach for both the RDN operations and for the public. Some of these designs have included, as we see here, raising it up so that we can bring a crane truck in and easy access. We've had options to actually build a road down to the pump station and to have ramp access, but site constraints, the steepness of the bank and the small space we have not allowed us to actually be able to be safely designed. This is a 3D model of the pump station that's in construction. So it's still an open concept pump station. The pumps are all below grade. The difference is we've brought all the controls, electrical controls, up to the higher grade, as well as a backup generator. This is to prevent us from being flooded with the potential of sea level rise in the coming years. The grade of the pump station is designed to the expected sea level rise to 2100, but it's also been designed so that should a major storm event happen and all the high tides in that align, that this can be overtopped by the sea. It's sealed, so the sea can actually wash over this, structurally designed to handle that. And when the storm event recedes, there will be very little ingress into the pump station. Public access will be through, unfortunately, it has to be a stairway. There's been a lot of request about making this a ramp for those with mobility challenges, but it's just physically not possible with the space. So there will be stair access down next to the pump station down to the beach. The pump station is an open concept with a fence. All the equipment will be out of sight, and the intent of this is, without putting it in a building, as we found with the challenges of vandalization, it's better to have it open so you can see there's nothing worth stealing. And this will be an architectural aluminum picket fence, so it'll be aesthetically pleasing. Again, the electrical controls will be at the top. There will be a boom across here and then pedestrian access down to the beach. The contract was awarded to Coast Utility Contracting earlier this year for a value of $4.5 million. It is currently in construction, and construction will continue through to the summer of 2022. We have a few milestone dates on the screen here, but it's a long process, and it's a challenging project from an archaeological, environmental aspects, as well as keeping the station running through all the construction periods. The next major event will be this excavation of the beach to be able to tie the system in and be able to divert flow so that we can build the new wet well in this area. So this is the existing wet well. We're going to be building a second wet well to allow us to have capacity and allow us to be able to switch between wet wells for maintenance. The valve station will be constructed in the middle and be brought up so that it has easy operator access. The other thing we have here is a rail cart system to allow for equipment to be hauled up and down to the pump station. Again, the public access stairway down next to the fence on the bottom side here, and then at the top, the electrical control and generator station. And that's all I have. If there are any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the delegation? Councillor O'Brien. Okay, sorry, you're right. We need to do a motion to receive the report first, and Councillor O'Brien, second by Councillor Wilson. All those in favor? Fair enough. Questions? Councillor O'Brien, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Mr. Taylor. Thank you for the presentation. Just a couple of questions. It sounds like you're dealing with this pump station in probably the worst location that could probably ever be imagined. So kudos for trying to accommodate what you need to do. Just a question, Mr. Taylor. The inlets, the input and the outfall, or the output from the pump station, do the piping system, does it run completely on the beach, or is it actually above that on Bay Avenue?
Through the mayor, the influent line is under the beach. It flows in under the beach, and from there it is pumped up Bay Avenue and overland to Temple Street, and then it gravitates down to the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, thank you. So that explains why it's actually located right beside the ocean, subject to all the sea level rise and everything else. It's actually, the intakes are actually in Parksville Bay, so to speak, that pick up all the sewage lines anyways from all of Parksville and parts of Surfside as well. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you. That explains a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions? All right. Again, thank you very much. Sorry for the confusion at the beginning. We appreciate the report and looking forward to getting this online and ready to go. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Doxey, you are away for report number 5B. Yeah. There are two handouts in front of you somewhere and with the numbers on them. And the first person that can make them out, put their hand up for me so that we'll go from there. All right.
Okay. If I may, through your worship, I'll just do a quick maybe explanation of the report. Pretty much speaks to itself for the background of the outdoor theater. But what I will explain is if council were to proceed. So what you can notice in this report is that it was originally budgeted for a $1.194 million budget for this year in 2021. Of that budget, there was $187,000 that was budgeted to be received from Beach Fest to balance the books. It was originally intended to be a turnkey project. So there was, at the beginning of the year, 802,336, $204,750. And then from the Beach Fest, there was budgeted to be received 187,214. So that the total budget for 2021 would be expending $1,194,300, and we would be receiving $1,194,300. Now that the tender has closed, you can see in the financial impact section there that the total cost remaining for 2021 would be $1,684,151, leaving a shortfall for the project budget at $490,000. What this would imply would be if council wishes to proceed with the project, we would need to pursue the resolutions that are included in the analysis section there. And so our resolution A would be amending the budget by increasing the outdoor theater budget by the $490,000 just described. And then the secondary portions there in B would be to authorize staff to award the contract to the low bidder, Copcan Civil at $1,298,500. The third resolution there is simply authorizing staff to approve contingency expenditures should they come up through the project, and that would be a 10% contingency. Given the scale of the work and the construction management style, and there is also a likelihood or probability of archaeological impact monitoring or archaeological monitoring to be undertaken on site. We wouldn't recommend going much below the 10% level there. So that resolution C is to support that. And then resolution C is had some further information come in to support it. So we received last week on the 29th, a letter from Beach Festival Society, just confirming the level of supports that they can have, or that they do have to commit to the project, what they have committed in the past. And so along with that letter, I provided an attachment that kind of explains some of how those commitments line up in terms of what happens in what year. And so effectively, they have contributed $192,048.86. Some of those commitments, such as design, site plan, hazard assessment, will have been accrued and expended in the previous years. And so the remaining commitments right now that we have from Beach Festival Society in 2021 would be the GICs that come to maturity at $128,351, plus the cash that we're currently holding, that's $21,529.81. And then the see below, there's a timber frame deposit, that $12,802.72. That would be realized this year when we go and we incur the cost through construction. So that would be an eligible cost. And so if you follow through the updated financials on that attached sheet, what that would do it would change how we're proposing to allocate this. And so if you think of these separately, is we budget for expenditures, but we also budget for revenues. And so how we're proposing to fund this is through general revenue. And so the 490 in resolution A would attain that element. And then resolution D, however, would need to be amended. And that would be to change the gas tax funding to be applied for the memorial project to $515,000 to offset that difference between the $490,000 plus the $24,530 that you see in line E of the attached sheet. So I know that's complicated and convoluted, but hopefully that explains some of it. But otherwise, I'll maybe leave it up to council to ask some questions at this point in time about the overall project or the finances.
I need a motion to receive. Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Chandler. Discussions, Councillor Greer, your hand was up.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yeah, I guess I have a lot of questions. However, I don't quite understand all of these numbers. You went pretty quick there. But from what I gather is they have a shortfall of 490,000, but we're picking that up with the gas tax. Is that true?
It's
So we don't have a deficit.
If I may, through your worship,
Please.
we're proposing to make up the money from general account funding that was allocated from the memorial project. and to offset the shortfall in the general fund accounting to the memorial project with gas tax funding. We can't use gas tax funding directly for the outdoor stage.
So we still have a
So there's a-
shortfall then.
That's correct.
So in your opinion, we don't have enough money, total money to go ahead with this project?
If I may, through your worship, not as it currently sits. I should warn or advise though that the project was tied to the gathering space project as well in the application for the CCR grant. So there's about $460,000 that's included in the grant, the $1.2 million grant from the CCR. The exact number is $1,263,521 for the grant. $461,185 of that project is allocated towards the gathering space project to happen next year. And so, yeah, if it is over budget, however, if we forego or give back the grant money, we give back the grant money for the whole kit kat and caboodle, as both projects were lumped together at the direction of council back in 2019.
So how much now are we short?
If I may, through your worship, we're short 490,000.
So then what I see here, the gas tax doesn't count.
Well, wait, hold on for a second. I think we're going in the wrong circles here. So would you like to try? Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Maybe just because I'm not a financial person, I'll try to explain it in my terms of how it made sense to me. So basically, because this project has already received a grant, we can't use gas tax funding for any shortfall because that's kind of doubling up on the grant. So in order to free up some money in our general revenue, we can apply gas tax funding to the memorial project, which we did not do originally. And that essentially frees up the 515 so that we can inadvertently use the gas tax money so that there's no net increase to the taxpayer in terms of like they don't have to fund this through taxes. So the 515 amount is different than your report because it's also taking into account the fact that Beach Fest is a little bit short on what we had budgeted at the beginning of the year by about $20-something thousand. So it essentially allows us to use the gas tax fund without breaking the rules from the grant. So we're kind of reallocating money from one pot to another, if that makes sense. But technically this project is $515,000 over budget. And staff have been able to find a way to fund it from within our existing revenues, basically. That makes more sense.
That was pretty good. Thank you. All right, Councillor Greer, follow up.
Thank you for that. So what we're saying is that when the beach club came to us and we agreed to this project.
Beach Fest. Sorry.
They didn't have the money that they thought they had.
No,
Is that right?
no, they're putting in the money that they said they were going to put in
It's
is
just
what I
that-
understand. It's the cost, the tender has come in for almost $500,000 over what was originally anticipated. That, in fact, it's significantly over when you go way back from when we started, because we originally looked at it, there was going to be $800,000 to build this. Now we're, it's gone even further.
Right.
So there's $20,000, I think, that's under discussion, but
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
If I may, there's a minor, sort of an accounting issue in that at the beginning of the year for the budget, we allocated $187,000 in essentially cash from Beach Fest. But some of the costs that Beach Fest incurred, which they were calculating, are actually ineligible. So there's about a $24,000
okay.
shortfall. So very, very minor compared to the overage, which comes from the tender. And that is just based on increases in the market, as far as we can tell.
It should be clear, though, that the Beach Fest did put the money in. It's just that it's not eligible for our accounting purposes is what it is. So everything's up on the top of the table here. They've done what they said they were going to do. We said what we were going to do. The two grants are in and approved. The only problem we have is that we're $400,000 or $500,000 short on the overall tender. And so that's where we're at right now. The discussion is that we can take the money from the gas tax, apply it to the memorial project, then take the cash that we had budgeted from the memorial project and apply it to this, so that we're not really taking, it's kind of a roundabout way, but we're not really taking the gas tax money to pay for the outdoor stage, which is against the rules. So if that's clear, God bless you, because I didn't understand it either. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to our CAO. Will this require an adjustment in our existing budget and a motion to move funds from one fund to another?
If I may, Your Worship, yes. So staff provided two options in the report. So on page, where is it here? Page 16 of 140, there's a recommended wording for council to consider. And if council wishes to proceed with the financial information that we have, we would be looking for someone to make these motions. And that essentially authorizes the shifting of the money from one pot to another and the award of the project so that we can actually meet the construction time of next spring.
Councillor Wilson is tearing the place down over there. So it's all right. Questions?
Follow-up?
Oh, certainly. Sorry.
Thank you. Would you prefer to have the rest of council make questions, or would we like to proceed with the 4 resolutions?
Councillor Patterson, it's 6 of one and half a dozen of another. So if you're feeling up to making the resolution or the motion, that's great. We'll do it now.
And then we can continue with questions.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Thank you. So at this point in time, I'd like to move A, B, C, and D recommendations by staff on page 16 forward. Oh, sorry. Do I need to change that to 515,000? Sorry, with one amendment to the gas tax funding of $515,000 changed, applied to the Memorial Avenue Capital Project.
All right, I need a seconder for that. Councillor O'Brien seconds that. Now we can have our discussion. Thank you very much, Councillor Patterson. Any other questions, Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you, Your Worship. And just for clarification, I think between the CAO and the explanations has kind of cleared it up. What it appears is that we were always thinking, I think in the back of our mind, we always had the gas tax because we have a surplus in the gas tax right now to help with any budget oversights anyhow. What has happened in this case, the fact that we were successful in getting the very generous CCR grant, then the rules come out. It's the devil's in the details. So the rules come out and says you cannot use gas tax for it because it's also federal. So then we're kind of caught in between these two, and I have to applaud Mr. Doxey for looking at the memorial project as being actually not having applied for the gas tax funds. They were able to take that and shift those funds into the Outdoor Performing Arts Theater project and then take the gas tax and apply it to the memorial. So it makes very good sense. It's a soft, so to speak. We don't have to go back and increase budgets on the rest of our budgets that's already been approved for either one of the projects. So other than what the amendments has mentioned. So I think it's a very creative way to carry on with this very, very important project. We're so deep into it right now and realize as well that this is going to be an asset for the city of Parksville. So I think that it's very important that we get on with this and let's take to the next stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson, you have your hand up again?
Yes,
No
thank
problem.
you, Your Worship, through you to Mr. Doxey. After this contract is awarded today, and I'm sure Beach Fest and the rest of the public and everything would like to know when the next stage or gravel shovels in the ground could be.
If I may, through your worship, I thought this possible start date was in here. The completion date is targeted for May 31st, 2022. It typically would take us about 30 days to get through the submittals erosion control plans, monitoring plans from the contractor, traffic control plans, and get contracts executed. Typically takes about the better part of a month to get all those works together, and with the ground to be broken thereafter.
Thank you. All right, I'll speak and then I'll call the vote. I think we have to make it abundantly clear here that we're spending $500,000 more on this project than we had anticipated. I don't, no sense in putting it any other way. We're taking gas tax money, even though it was there and it's allocated for this type of thing. We're now using it on here. I think the upside to this and the part that we all have to keep in mind, including all the citizens and the taxpayers of Parksville, is that we are going to spend a grand total of $500,000 of Parksville money on this project for something that's going to cost $1 million, whatever the total there is, $1.5 million in it. So in my mind, if you can get something, $1.5 million worth of assets for $500,000 investment, I think you've done pretty good. So from there, everybody's to be commended on this. So having said that, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of Councillor Patterson's motion? Unanimous. Thank you. Mr. Russell, you're up.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. So the first item is the follow-up report for development variance permit and development permit at 187 and 193 Bagshaw Street. Required notice has already occurred for this application. We have received 2 correspondence in opposition that have been distributed to council, both via email and paper copies on your desk there. As required notice has now occurred, council must consider comments as well as any comment from someone in the gallery before making a decision on the development variance permit. The proposal, if approved, will provide a predominantly 4-story mixed-use commercial multi-unit residential development with commercial space on the ground floor and 39 residential units. The recommendations are per the agenda for consideration of the development variance permit as well as the development permit.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations, Councillor Greer and Councillor Chandler. Discussion? Well, that was easy. I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Mr. Russell, please continue.
If I may, worship, also for council consideration this evening is a development permit, a reissuance of a development permit for a 3-story mixed-use building at 154 Weld Street. This is a property that has a small log house on it that's between 2 other commercial buildings on either side. We have an active building permit application that's, so they're ready to break ground on this. It is for a, let's see here. It's a bit more complicated. It's for a facilitated 3-story mixed-use building with associated parking and landscaping. The property has commercial space on the ground floor and 4 2-bedroom residential units on the upper floors. As part of the development permit, some minor variances are under consideration to facilitate basically a change in the allocation of small car spaces to medium car spaces. 1 parking space is being provided through payment to the city in lieu of parking. And then there's some minor relaxations to the width of landscape screening in order to fit required parking on the site. The form and character of the proposal was reviewed by the design panel back in September 19th, 2019. The design panel recommended that the development permit application, at that time it was development permit application 048, at the subject property be accepted as presented to the design panel, and the variances requested were supported. This is a reissuance of that same permit, just with a new permit number As said, everything else is the same. Recommendations are as per the agenda.
You mover into seconder on this, Counselor O'Brien, second by Counselor Wilson. Discussion. Counselor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I looked at this design and building, and it's really nice to see this development take place. That's been an empty spot and a kind of a sore spot in Wells Street. Are these condos or rentals?
If I may, worship to Councillor Greer, I am not aware, I'm not privy to their tenancy.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm glad that that space is being utilized, and the pictures of the development looks really good. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions? Counselor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Ms. Russell. And as I recall, the bottom floor was dedicated for what they said would be for medical office use. So this, to me, is a good sign. If there's a place for doctors to practice or practitioners and so forth, or any medical help, we could certainly use it. So this may provide some extra office space anyways for them. So I'm pleased to see this application.
All right, call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. We have a report from the Grant and Aid Select Committee with recommendations for the fall allocations. Counselor Chandler or Counselor Wilson, whichever. Don't fight over it. Just tell us.
Thank you, Your Worship. So what we decided was to basically divide the money evenly. One of the things that I thought we should mention, just as a reminder to folks who apply for these grants, is that they are required to fill the information in completely. And many of the applications were not filled in, but because they're good organizations, we decided to still give the money out this year, but just as a reminder for the next time. Thank you.
Excellent reminder, Counselor Wilson. It should be done properly. If they expect us to write the check, then they could take the time to fill the forms out properly. All right, I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. I would expect that Counselor Wilson is going to make the motion and Counselor Chandler is going to second the motion. So any questions? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much for your efforts on this. I appreciate it. It's never fun having to go through it and deciding how much and where, but now we move on to Mrs. Weeks. Please tell us your report regarding permissive tax exemptions.
Thank you. So this is in accordance with the charter. Council has discretion when considering applications for property tax exemptions. The city has a policy which provides guidance to council on the consideration and approval of permissive tax exemptions. So the recommendation on the council agenda is in accordance with the policy and equals approximately 1.65% of the tax revenues for 2022.
Okay, I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Moved by Counselor Wilson, second by Counselor Greer. Discussion? Okay, it's yours first. You have to go.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had a question, and it's concerning the Salvation Army. And I believe, if I'm correct, one of the buildings is for their administration office. So I just a little confused about how that fits in. Maybe our CAO can
That's a
explain.
good question. Can somebody on staff advise us?
If our, this has come up before, I just can't recall the answer.
Do you want me to, I think it's on 141 Memorial, I believe, is an office building. It has many offices in there. That's just their administration office. So they have two other locations as well. So I was just wondering how there are 3 locations on this thing.
Yeah, if our Director of Finance is listening in, he might have more information, but my understanding from previous times when this has come up is that, again, as our corporate officer mentioned, these are discretionary, but they are still nonprofit. So I know there was discussions with previous council about their store, but the store's proceeds are still non-profitable revenue. And so, they still meet the criteria for receiving the exemption. But I don't know if our Director of Finance is listening, if he has anything else he wants to add, but technically, because their assets are all still belonging to the nonprofit, we haven't distinguished in the past of, if it's an admin building versus others. There are statutory requirements that certain, like for schools and churches and hospitals, that we cannot, like, they're not discretionary exemptions on their places of worship, but their parking lot would be, for example. So we haven't actually in the past split out any of our permissive tax requests in that manner, but
I think on the other side of that, one might take note that the SOS, for example, their administration building is totally tax exempt as well. So it's been a tradition that we've done that right from the beginning on it. I'm assuming the director is not online. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe we still have a cap of 225, do we not? And with these additions, somebody else gets less of a permissive tax exemption?
Go, please.
Yes, so in the policy, it's 225 or 1.67% of taxes. So this is in accordance with the policy, it's 1.65% of the tax revenues.
So some of the ones previously are probably getting less than the tax
Right.
cut.
Accordance with the policy right now, all of them, other than the 2 recreation ones, are getting 100%. And the 2 rec are getting 50%.
So we're still under 225.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
We haven't capped out yet. All right. Yeah, whichever's, I understand. All right, question, Councillor.
Your worship, it's Lucky Butterworth chiming in here.
It was a very good ventriloquist act. Sorry, Lucky, we can't make out what you're saying on that. So well, I think we have the answer anyways. Thank you for your effort on it. I appreciate it. Councillor O'Brien, let's try that again.
That wasn't me sounding like an alien. That was great.
Although.
Could be. So the thing is that as I understand it, Your Worship, through to Amanda anyways, these exemptions anyways are only for 100% for the municipal portion. And for the fact that they're not 100% exempt, they still pay the rest of the taxes, the hospital, schools and so forth. As Councillor Wilson had pointed out, as in the Salvation Army have 3 exemptions here to everything, but all of them, they still have to pay the other portions. Is that correct?
if I may, sorry, Your Worship.
Please, I was
So
gonna
if
say-
the city gives some agency 100% exemption, it also exempts them from other taxes like school and hospital.
Yes.
If they had 99% exemption, then they still have to pay the other taxes. So the organizations that get the 50% per the policy are still having to pay their other taxes. Sometimes they can apply to those other agencies to get lower taxes, but it was cited as a big concern when we did reduce from the 100%. So usually this year we didn't have we weren't over allocated as much as we had been in previous years. And so within the cap, we were able to offer everybody, if subject to council approval, of course, everybody could get the 100% who's eligible for that. But the rec programs per the policy are only eligible for up to 50. So those folks will have to still pay their other taxes. But the people who get the 100% exemption per council today are exempt from both, like all senior levels of government taxes as well.
Go ahead.
Follow up, if I may, Your Worship. So as I understand it, then I was under the impression that the only ones getting the 100% were like the Oceanside Cadet Youth Society and the RDN Curling Club and the Lawn Bowling Club. But you're suggesting like the under the categories places of worship, society, seniors, and disadvantaged, they are all at 100% or are they at 99%? They're at 100%, so they will not have to pay the extra taxes.
If I may-
It just wasn't clear here on unless it's in the fine print.
Yeah, if I may, this year that is the case, but in previous years to maintain the cap, we actually had to reduce everybody down just because we had more applications than before. But this year we're able to, it basically fits in underneath the cap that we have.
I have Councillor Wilson and Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. To our CAO, I think it's my understanding that in order to qualify, they also have to prove that they have applied for grant money and other forms of, am I incorrect on that?
If I may, Your Worship, I'm not sure that we have that as one of our, there is a pretty extensive application process they have to go through. But I don't believe we require them to prove that they've like tried to get grants, but I can clarify. I'll have to look at the forms again and clarify that.
Okay, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to Ms. Weeks. I think so. In 2021, we received the 23 applicants that I see in our package and everything. And we were able to pretty much give everyone their ask of the 100%. But we've had more applications in the past. That's correct, yes?
It's been 23, sorry, Your Worship. It's been 23 applications for quite some time. There has been a couple that come in that aren't eligible.
Okay. Okay. I think that pretty much answers my question because it can change from year to year then. Thank you.
All right. If we don't have any further questions, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion made? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Oh, Lucky's here now. Hey, Lucky, how are you? Sorry for the fact that we got the answer before you got back. So, Mrs. Weeks, continue on the Island Corridor Foundation.
Thank you. So in July 2011, the city entered into a license of occupation agreement with the Island Corridor Foundation, Regional District of Nanaimo, City of Nanaimo, District of Blantsville, and Town of Qualicum Beach. This license of occupation includes a tax exemption for 5 pieces of land within Parksville's municipal boundary. In October 2011, Council adopted a permissive tax bylaw to exempt those 5 properties for 10 years at 100%. And that bylaw expired this year. So this report is to grant 100% tax exemption for a further 10 years, starting in 2022, in accordance with the license of occupation and the recommendations as per the council agenda.
I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Patterson, second by Councillor Wilson. Discussion. My question would be on this: if is 10 years in the license agreement that we have to give them an automatic 10-year extension?
It's actually for 25 years, but per the charter, we can only give a bylaw for 10 years. Exemption for
Okay,
10 years.
so according to the contract we have with them, they're still within that 25 years that we did. Darn. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I'll call it. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 3 readings on the permissive tax exemption bylaw 2021. In consideration of the 3 readings, public notification will be provided October the 6th and 13th in accordance with the community charter legislation. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Greer, second by Councillor Wilson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. 3 readings, permissive tax exemption bylaw 2021 to 2031, number 1575. In consideration of 3 readings, public notification to be provided October 6th and 13th in accordance with the community charter. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor O'Brien, second by Councillor Chandler. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Notice of motion. Councillor O'Brien, you provided a notice of motion at our last meeting, and so we'll leave it with you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have, and I will present that at this time exactly as hopefully in your agenda package, that staff be directed to submit a funding application to the Green Municipal Fund for brownfield restoration and redevelopment of the city lots located at 1040 and 1060 Industrial Way in the Parksville Industrial Park.
I need a seconder for that recommendation and for that motion. Counselor Wilson, you're seconding it? Okay, seconded. Discussion. Counselor O'Brien, it's yours. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. My point in making this motion at this particular time is to get the wheels in motion to apply for whatever funding we can for brownfield restoration. Brownfield restoration, for those that are not aware of the terminology, is to reclaim and improve and restore the land subject to a garbage dump, which it was at one time. It's unknown what is in that particular piece of land type of thing, but we know that it is also should be investigated at this time, because basically it's the right thing to do, because we know what's actually out there in that industrial park land. And especially with the proximity to the aquifers and the Englishman River, it could be leaching into that. And so on that one point alone, it's worthy of restoring it to a natural state, or actually usable state, so that we could actually build on it. It is a possible potential site for the aquatic center or other recreation facilities that are maybe needed for the city of Parksville type of thing. It would be an excellent location for that. So the thing is that my point is to, if we want to get this restored, the time is now to apply for it, because all grants take a certain amount of time before that happens. Thank you.
Thank you. I just need some clarifications before. Do we have a seconder? Yes, we did. Yeah, okay. From my perspective, sorry, I was thinking about something totally different. Clarification here. This grant, if I'm not mistaken, is for actual planning after we know what we're planning with, if I'm not mistaken. And that's because we looked at this back in June, according to Ms. Tardif. She told me that they've already they looked at this. And the problem we have, not that it's a bad idea, in fact, it's a good one. I'll come to that in a second. But in order to go further, we need to know what we're going further with. And right now, we don't know how significant the contamination, if there is any contamination there at this point in time. We don't know any of that. So that's causing a problem that would hinder this. I would like to make an amendment to the proposed motion that would say that I would like to authorize a budget of up to $100,000 in 2022 for staff to engage in the appropriate consultations to prepare phase 1 and phase 2, if we can get phase 2 in that budget, of environmental assessment, so that we can establish exactly what the damages are in that ground. I along with Councillor O'Brien on this, totally agree that it's too valuable a piece of land to sit there and let leach into the soils without it be at least letting us know what we're dealing with on this. So we're going to need some money to go there. It's going to take a phase 1, phase 2 for sure, and probably a phase 3 assessment. We could be in for significantly more money than that, but let's get and find out as we move along, so that we can address this problem. And once and for all, after how many years? When was it capped? Probably 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. After 20 years, you think we would at least know what we're dealing with, and we don't. I agree. This could be leaching like crazy into the river. It might not be doing anything into the site. I don't know. And that's what the problem is. If you don't know what you don't know, it's a dangerous situation. So I'd like to make an amendment, and I need a seconder for that amendment. Councillor Greer is amending. And discussion on the amendment. Go ahead, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. And the idea was to apply for the grants, because when I looked at the brownfield restoration grants from the Green Municipal Fund, it did include, as I read it, it did include costs for consultation and studies and so forth, for reports to get some of what you're applying or what you're suggesting now. But to cover all bases, I think it's a good idea to amend that particular motion to put 100,000 upfront anyways to get the consultation ball rolling now. My point is to get the ball rolling now because we don't know how long it's going to take to do so. So I would be acceptable to that amendment.
Thank you. Your points of what the funding was for, you're absolutely right, but you have to be able to tell them that in a phase 2, it requires this. I mean, that's just the way they deal. So we need to know what we're dealing with before we can go any further. So we're saying the same things. Councillor Wilson, you had your hand up.
Oh, thanks, Your Worship. It was really because of something else, but that's okay. I'll speak to this. I'm really happy about this motion. I spoke to our CAO back in 2019 about brownfield sites. And other projects such as Dockside Green, which is on a brownfield site. So I'm thrilled actually that we're moving on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Worship. And while I am absolutely wholeheartedly in favor of this recommendation, I have a question through you to our CAO in regards to the time staff will have to look at and apply for the grant.
If I may, Your Worship, we would be putting this, from what I heard, this is a 2022 project.
Yes.
We do have monitoring that we've been doing sporadically over the years with a consulting firm. And so what we suspect is that staff would come back to council, most likely requesting a sole source approval so that we could just go straight to the same company that has been doing the monitoring over the years. And most of this would be contracted out, but we would start it in the 2022, beginning of 2022. The grant, from what we could tell in the summer, it was emailed to us, and it seems like we do have to do the initial studies first, and then we would be applying for the grant after. So I believe we would be able to accommodate that in 2022.
Councillor Patterson, you had your hand back up again.
Yes.
Which is perfectly fine, by the way.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just based on what the CAO was saying, that would go outside of city staff, and it would have to come back to council to award that per se, and that in 2022 or just at a future council meeting.
If I may, Your Worship, we would still have to obviously do some work on the project management and liaising with the consultant, but we really need a specialized contaminated site engineer. I don't know what their proper term would be, but we had been working with a firm for quite some years. And so they should be able to apply the appropriate experts. So our engineering staff would monitor and manage the project, but the bulk of the assessment and research and everything would actually be done by qualified professionals outside of the city's staff.
We will obtain a request for proposal from them though, before we.
Yes, if I may, Your Worship, the quickest and easiest way would be for staff to prepare a report. Once we reach out to the individual companies and see if they're able to do it for us, our purchasing policy basically says that we have to go through a big rigorous process unless we come to council. And I think in this case, it would be justified that we use the company that's already done a lot of the work, and we've paid a lot of money for them to do research. So they wouldn't have to, a new company wouldn't charge us the same money to do the same work that's already been done. So we'll have to dig in. We do have a file that's been just passed to our new Director of Engineering and IT. And we would come back to council with the plan of either going out to bid or awarding it to this one company that we hope would be able to do the work for us.
All right, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Worship. So just for clarification, do you require a motion for staff to review that at this point in time? Or would you just prefer to leave it till 2022?
If I may, Your Worship, I think the motion that we have was basically the original notice of motion from Councillor O'Brien with an addition that $100,000 be allocated to the budget in 2022 to investigate the current condition of the site, doing phase 1 and possibly phase 2 assessment. So I think that motion is sufficient right now to get us started on our plan, and then we would come back to council with the options of either going to this one firm that we've already used, or if they're not available or they don't want to do it, then we would go out to do an RFP and get bids. I think we're good for now, but thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If there's no questions, I'd like to call the question. Pardon? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Okay, now we have to vote on the amended. That was just a vote for the amendment. Now I'll call the question on the amended motion. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously as well. Thank you very much. Notice of motion. I have a motion regarding School District 69's continued use of the kitchen at the PCC for their culinary program. I would like to move that the council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to sign an extension of the term of the agreement with School District 69 for use of the PCC kitchen for a 9-month term at a nominal fee of $1. That's overcharging. All right, I need a seconder for that. Councillor Patterson, thank you. Discussion? Is 9 months, will that take them through the year?
If I may, your worship, we anticipate that we would be turning the property over to
Oh,
the
okay.
other
I
operator by
gotcha.
that time.
Of course,
So
of
this
course.
just gets them through their school term.
All right.
Till then.
That's fine. As long as everybody can work within that time frame, that's great. Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Notice of motion. I am going to ask for your support on this. Last week, I wrote a letter as mayor supporting the Parksville Museum's application to the province for funding through the Fairs, Festivals, and Events Recovery Fund for expenses related to their annual railway days. The deadline for the application to be submitted was October 1st, and I advised the funding selection committee that I would request council to add their support by way of a formal resolution that could be forwarded and included with the application. So I've given them my support as mayor, but I also said that I would come back to council and ask for your support as well on this, since I didn't have the authority to do that for council. So I need a mover and a seconder. Well, I'll move that council endorse and support, and the resolution as it is there. And I need a seconder, Councillor Greer. Discussion? All those in favor? Thanks, folks. Appreciate that. New business, does anybody have? Now.
I was going to make a notice of motion.
Oh, that's fine. Under new business?
I guess,
Yeah, it
I
doesn't
guess I
matter.
could make it under
Yeah.
new business.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you, your worship. So this will be as per decision from our May workshop with the our May workshop, that council hold a workshop with the PDBA in the new year. And that workshop would discuss not only the downtown revite, but also transportation plan, and the workshop would include a discussion on traffic circulation, calming, road safety, pedestrian cycling analysis pertaining to the downtown core, and other necessary. Thank you, and I will give you a copy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That would work better. All right, so that's on for the next meeting. Anything else anybody has under new business? All right. Next meeting is Monday, October the 18th. Oh, sorry, didn't see your hand up there.
Sorry, your worship, just referring back to the original agenda approval. when
Oh,
I-
yeah, thanks. Thank
Yeah,
you for that.
So I would like to propose that under new business at this time, if I may.
Absolutely. Make the motion.
The only change would be that I'd like to request council to approve the motion to formally announce the following. Recently, a number of council members and other members of our community attended the announcement celebration to acknowledge the generous gift donation of $6 million from the Wilson 5 Foundation to protect and preserve an ecologically sensitive site at the Englishman River estuary. On behalf of the citizens of Parksville, we wish to acknowledge this incredible gesture from the Wilson 5 Foundation that will be managed by the Nature Trust Conservancy.
Fair enough. Pardon me.
Sorry, just to make sure that we get this right this time. Would it be appropriate for this to go as a formal correspondence from council to the Wilson Foundation rather than just stating it publicly in that way?
I think what's happening here is Councillor O'Brien is making a motion on council, so that goes on the record officially
Yeah.
is what he's doing.
But
I
do you
think
want us to
with
send
that,
a-
you could tag in there that the mayor will forward a letter of
Okay,
as well, acknowledging it, so that we've got something in writing to them.
That's fair. Yeah, fair enough. Thank you. That would accomplish the goal. Thank you.
All right, so we've got it moved and seconded. Discussion, anybody? Councillor Patterson?
Thank you. Instead of a notice of a motion, can we vote on this?
We're going to.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
Yes, yes, sorry. Any other discussion? Pardon me? Oh, I thought we had a seconder, did we not? No, all right, Councillor Wilson has seconded it. My apologies. I thought we had a seconder on that. So we do have a seconder now. All right, we're just, it was moving so fast. I'll call the question. All those in favor? It's well worthwhile. Carried unanimously by council. Thank you. All right, so get back to next Monday, October the 18th at 3 p.m. is our next meeting. And I need a mover and a seconder to move into a closed meeting under 91. Those letters are getting smaller all the time. 91E of the Community Charter. Council proceed to a closed meeting to consider items relating to disposition of land. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Chandler, Councillor Greer. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Let's move on. 5, can we take 5? Would that be all right?